What's going on, guys? This is Rob. If you guys enjoy my content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that little bell so you never miss out on my sexy voice. Okay, so we're continuing on with the Flash Rebirth, and not really Flash Rebirth, well, I guess the Flash Rebirth, but Flash War. And the whole idea behind this is, remember, for those of you guys who are just now getting into this, Flash War deals with the idea that Wally West discovered that his kids, or at least he was told that his kids were alive. Now again, this information really came from Hunter Zolomon, who of course, as we talked about in previous videos, was a speedster who basically became an enemy of the Flash after he had essentially lost the use of his legs and wanted the Flash, Wally West, to go back and change time so that everything in Hunter Zolomon's life really hadn't gone awry and gone terrible. But because of the fact that Wally wouldn't do it, Hunter Zolomon became his enemy. And so in this instance, Hunter Zolomon had kind of, seemingly grabbed them from the present day, brought them to the 25th century and said, hey, just so you know, Wally, like your kids are stuck in the Speed Force. If you go out there and you destroy the Speed Force, you'll bring them back. Like you'll basically bring your kids back. And again, it's very much feeding on like the parental instincts of Wally West, which is why it works. The problem with this was that Barry was coming from this from the perspective of like the events of Flashpoint, right? Like when Barry had gone back in time, tried to save his mom's life, he succeeded, but screwed up the universe in the process and had to go back in time and let her die in order to set things back to normal. That's the whole perspective he's coming from here. And trying to impart those pearls of wisdom onto Wally, the whole idea of Wally is I've grown beyond your protege. I'm not the little kid who was Kid Flash anymore. I'm an adult now with a family that I need to go save. And again, it works because what parent wouldn't go to the ends of the earth in order to save their kids? The issue with this is when you're talking about two speedsters of such incredible ability, such incredible speed running around, it's not like they move in a vacuum, right? It's not like they move around and nothing's impacted by what they do. They're running at such a high velocity around the earth with Wally running to break the Speed Force and Barry chasing him down that they're literally sending ripples throughout the entirety of the universe itself. The very fabric of the universe is literally shaking at the kind of speed and the kind of ripples they're putting off on such a strong level. And so when you have like Amanda Waller, Steve Trevor, and the various members of the government responding to this and trying to find a way to deal with it, their initial response is, well, let's just kind of use weapons, see if we can take them out using tanks or something like that. And of course it doesn't work. And so, this is like a little one-page thing. It's not designed to be a great, big, huge, sprawled out event. But in response to this, you have Amanda Waller who tells Steve Trevor, contact your friends. So of course, this basically means the Justice League. But the important thing about this, and the cool thing with this great, big, huge moment, is you're talking about two extremely powerful guys in terms of how their speed impacts the world around them. But what this is also going to do is it's really going to kind of reiterate the status quo in relation to how fast like Superman is in relation to these guys and how fast the various members of the superhero community are in terms of the power they possess. And so where Superman and the rest of the Justice League and really even some of the Titans show up on the scene and say, hey, look, like what's going on here? They're basically given the news by Steve Trevor saying that like Wally wants to break the Speed Force, Barry's chasing him down, it's creating ripples throughout the entire fabric of the universe. You guys have to find a way to stop him. And what ends up happening is Superman immediately takes off after them. And that's kind of the funny thing, because when Superman races off, it's basically like, hey, you guys have to stop, you guys have to slow down, but it only lasts for like a fraction of a second. I mean, it is so astronomically quick, and Superman has to back off because he can't keep up. And that's one of the big things that I want you guys to really bring from this. When it comes to like status quos in comic books, they change all the time. And so really it's kind of been one of those things where for the last, I would say probably about the last 20 years, it's been generally accepted that the Flashes are faster than Superman, because of what use would the Flash be if he's not the fastest man alive? He's just a guy that can run really fast. And so because of this, like it really kind of fits into the status quo. Now again, going all the way back to like the 40s, 50s, 60s, and really from the 60s going forward, especially with regards to Barry Allen, really from the mid 50s going forward in the modern day, you're talking about like the Flash versus Superman. Those races are iconic. But really it wasn't until recent years, within the last 10, 20 years or so, that it's kind of been established the Flash is always faster than Superman because that's just how fast he is. But from there, you switch over to Green Lantern, and Green Lantern's response is, well, if Superman can't stop him, then the big green wall will bring him to an end. And again, they blast right through it. I mean, they literally they tear right through the Green Lantern's wall. And this is a huge moment. This is one of the things that's really, really crazy here, because when you're talking about this much force moving this fast, there's very few things that can stand in the way of it. And this is designed to highlight a couple of different things. While it does kind of show that the Flashes are moving exceedingly fast, the real big takeaway from this is that like Green Lantern can't stop him, Superman can't catch him. If we ran into a situation where the Flash truly decided that he wanted to be a villain and just unleash holy hell across the world, world, there wouldn't really be a whole lot of people who can stop him. Like there really wouldn't be a whole lot of people that could get in his way. And this is really more, I imagine, of like vindication for Flash fans, right? Like I've been telling people for years, the Flash is one of the strongest characters there is, and nobody ever wanted to believe me. That's really where this kind of fits in here, because you're talking about a person who's so fast and moving at such an incredible speed that really people are just in the way. And that's really all it comes down to. So again, it's a really interesting moment here. But one of the things to bear in mind is it really is Barry trying to impart this wisdom onto Wally. That's really what he's trying to do here. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's been around for a long time, and he was learning how to be the Flash when he first gained his speed, and he was understanding what it meant to be a hero, that there would be times when your moral compass would be questioned, but you always have to do the right thing. You know, Barry had walked that path, he'd walked that road. Wally picked up after Barry. You know, Wally gained his powers as a little kid, and Barry was imparting all that wisdom on him when he was a little kid, when he was Kid Flash, and then when Barry died during Crisis on Infinite Earths, or at least was believed to have died, Wally took up the pieces. You know, he picked up the pieces, took up the mantle, and became the new Flash, and he had to discover all those things on his own. But it's not like there's really a right or a wrong here. It's not like there's, you know, it's really one of those very hairy, morally ambiguous middle grounds. It's very much a gray area, because on one half, the Speed Force being destroyed, who knows what effect it would have on the multiverse. And so like you're talking about this idea that like the Speed Force could literally destroy the entire fabric of creation. And while Barry's trying to stop Wally from doing that, at the same time, Wally's trying to rescue his kids. And it makes perfect sense. You know, Speed Force and Universe be damned, Wally wants to find his kids. And it's a perfect thing. It's exactly what any parent would do. And that's why it makes it so cool. And that's one of the reasons why, like looking at this whole situation unfolding, this is why Wally West always had his dedicated fan base. It's the reason why fans always loved Wally. Because what you're talking about here is a character that's so emotional in a lot of ways and is so grounded and so rooted. That was really the big difference between Barry and Wally. I mean, looking back at the earlier days of comics, Barry was very grounded and he was very tangible, you know, but really he was more of like the iconic superhero. He was born and bred in the age of 1950s science fiction meets superhero themes. He was the one that reinvigorated interest in comic books, you know, with DC Showcase #4. And so with that in mind, like Wally was a lot more grounded. He was a lot more tangible, because by the time he became the new Flash in the mid to late 1980s, it was really a wholly different era of comics. Gwen Stacy had died, Dark Knight Returns was about to kick off. You had like all these things that had been going on that it made heroes a lot darker and a lot more gritty and a lot more real world and realistic. And so those themes were rolled over into the Wally West comics. That combined with the fact that everybody loved him from Justice League Unlimited and all that kind of stuff. It basically meant that you had a recipe for like everyone's favorite Flash. And so that's why people love Wally so much. But from there, you essentially have Wally who succeeds, like literally seems to break through the Speed Force and shatter the Speed Force in its entirety. The problem with this is that's not what happens. The Speed Force is not broken and it's not destroyed. The Speed Force is still very much there. Instead, what ends up happening here is Hunter Zolomon essentially appears, but after taking out all the members of the Justice League. And the reason why is because the sky is kind of shattered. It's basically broken. And where the belief is that the Speed Force is broken, what Hunter Zolomon says is that's not what's going on here. What's actually going on here is I basically lied to you. And it was the most predictable outcome. There was really no point where Joshua Williamson believed that we would believe that Hunter Zolomon had become a good guy. He's just like that incorrigible, unchangeable villain. And so it was a matter of just kind of seeing how this situation would play out. And Hunter Zolomon's response is, you guys believe there's only the Speed Force, but that's not true. There's the Strength Force, there's the Sage Force, there's all these different forces out there. Now, this actually makes a whole lot of sense when you really break it down. And the reason why I say this is the Speed Force is the most prominent force, just because of the fact that you're talking about like how speedsters draw their power. But with regards to this whole concept, if speedsters draw their super speed from the Speed Force, then where do like super strong characters draw their energy from? Where do like psychics draw their energy from? That's why this works so well. It's shuffling up the status quo, it's changing things up a bit. What Joshua Williamson is doing here is the Flash equivalent to Jeff Johns expanding on the Green Lantern Corps and saying now there's a Red Lantern Corps and a Sinestro Corps and Black Lanterns and White Lanterns and Indigos and Blue Lanterns and Star Sapphires and all these kind of things. You know, that's why it works, is because it's expanding on this mythos that could really even go beyond the Flash mythos itself. But at the moment, what Hunter Zolomon had been doing was studying the entire, really the history of like the world, you know, of what had been going on over the course of like decades and decades and decades running up to the 25th century. And what this means is that Hunter Zolomon is aware of Dr. Manhattan. He's aware of like the war that will take place. At least it seems like he is. And so his whole argument is we need like an actual hero, a true hero. You guys are not heroes. You guys are standing in for heroes. You're parading around and you're not really solving anything. You're just running around in circles hoping things change. But he's like, I basically, like the whole point behind this was to have you guys smash through this quote unquote force barrier. So the Speed Force is still there. But what you've done is you've now released the Sage Force Force, and you've released the Strength Force. And what it means is that Hunter's Element can now tap into these things. And what that means now is Hunter's Element has telepathy and telekinesis. Hunter's Element has super strength, and Hunter's Element has super speed. He's literally, just like Superman, amplified several times over with the powers of Martian Manhunter. This guy is a walking, talking god on Earth. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like, and yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.